So good evening, everybody. My name is Michael D'Italia. I'm the Director of Student Success Initiatives for the Division of Student Academic Success here at Rutgers-Camden. Really excited to have you all with us tonight for our From Struggle to Success student panel. I think this is going to be a really vibrant conversation. We've got some great panelists and a spectacular moderator lined up. So I don't want to take up too much of our time. I would like instead to hand things off to Sabrina Gonzalez, our moderator for the evening.
All right. Hi, guys. I'm Sabrina, and a few more people are joining us. So thank you guys for coming. So this evening, as Michael said, it's going to be about from struggle to success. So we're going to be asking some alumni as well as hello. As well as some current students, their definition of struggle to success. So this panel will focus on how everyone has their good days and bad days, and each one of us is capable of preserving even when times are tough. During the panel, Rutgers-Camden students and alumni will share how their struggles have led to success. Participants will be able to chat with the students and ask questions about how they reach their goals, despite the challenges that they have encountered along the way. So I am going to share the slideshow and we can begin. All right, so welcome again, everyone. Again, I am Sabrina. I'm a senior majoring in a double major in history and political science. And if the moderators would like to, well, the panelists would like to introduce themselves, that'd be fantastic.
Okay, so I'll go first. My name is Sharday Taylor. I go by Ahava Divine. I am a social worker, a mindset coach, and a fitness instructor, and also political strategist in the community, in Camden community. I graduated in 2019, and I graduated from Rutgers-Camden.
All right, Mohammed.
Mohammed, and I'm a computer science major. That's slang. And I'm in my final year, hopefully. I don't have to stay an extra year.
Ooh.
Basically, about my story of how I came back from almost being expelled from the university to getting out of probation and getting my GPA back in order.
I am so happy that you guys will be sharing your stories very shortly. I'm just gonna introduce these two slideshows real fast, and then we can begin with Q&As for the panelists. I've said this before in my last panel, but it's very important, again, to stay organized, connecting with others, prioritizing sleep, especially during this time when everything, even on election day, is very uncertain. So these are just a few personal strategies in order to have a plan in order to be successful within your personal as well as your academic career. So the biggest thing from this is setting specific goals that are achievable. So being able to plan out something that you know that you can do, but at the same time challenging you a little bit, so you're not being scared away from reaching those goals. Make sure you're always being persistent, keep going, even during now. It's very important, as well as having that academic purpose in order to make sure that you are feeling good about what you were doing and why you were doing it later down in your professional career. And then any questions about that? Just little quick questions. So if the panelists would like to answer, one of these questions, that'd be great. Mohammed, we can start with you. How would you define your struggle to success? So explaining your story if you would like, and then we can go to, I'm so sorry, I don't want to butcher your name.
What?
Ahava.
Ahava. Okay. And then, but if you would like to, answer the question afterwards as well as like explain your story, that'd be fantastic.
Okay.
So I'll start, I guess. So the way I look at it is struggle is like not knowing where you are in life and lacking satisfaction for different aspects of your life overall. And success is like understanding the satisfaction obtained in your life, whether it be your creativity, happiness, stability, and it's overall learning from your mistakes. I think it's totally fine to struggle and it's totally necessary if you want to grow as a person and be successful. That's it.
And then if you want to tell us about your story, and why you feel this way.
All right. Yeah, so I did struggle a lot during freshman and sophomore year. Um, let's just say it's like a series of events, one after another, kept pushing me back. And eventually that made my GPA suffer like horribly. I got into probation a few times, and then eventually I went to the point where the dean was like, we need to have a talk because you're possibly getting expelled for how low a GPA you have. And at that moment, it was like, okay, I really had to like analyze myself and pick myself up, regardless of what's going on in my life. And what I learned is like, no matter how much crap goes on, you can always have distractions and setbacks due to factors that you can control. But it all always comes down to you. You're like the main culprit. You have to analyze yourself and see what you did wrong the last semester and fix that. Where else? Yeah, that's pretty much. It's just learning from like, because it can like it's always you. You can't always like blame other factors.
Yeah,
That's
and
why.
if you want to like add more to that as well, like throughout the panel, like that'd be also fantastic. Ahava.
Okay, so full disclosure, I have a 5-year-old here, so she may be screaming and running in the background.
Totally.
That's her. So just in case you hear her yelling over me. Struggle. Oh goodness, such a harsh word. One thing I would definitely say is it's about the mindset. Before I became who I am now, struggle was a part of my everyday life. When it came to being in foster care and not understanding who I was as an individual or where I belong, and then deciding to participate in activities that just made me feel like I was a part of something, to going to college and understanding that I was never properly prepared to go to college, even being in school. So struggle for me during the course of being in Rutgers was definitely obstacles that was more persistent than my determination to succeed. I would say that the obstacles were I lost my house. I had a house fire during a year that I was on probation for my GPA. My freshman year was horrible because one thing I did not have was time management skills. I didn't understand what research university meant. Learned the hard way that you write a lot of papers. And that was something that I definitely was not prepared for. But what I will say is when I realized that I was the only one who could change what was happening to me, regardless of the external forces that was going against me, I started looking for different ways for me to get assistance. So I started utilizing the resources that was on campus, which I would have never done before. And the reason I would have never asked for help, because that's all it was me asking for help, was due to my upbringing. You don't ask for help, you figure it out and you keep moving. If you can't figure it out, then go do something else. So in order for me to begin my journey of succeeding, I had to let go of the beliefs that I had that was limiting me from reaching my full potential. And that's when I met RJ. Because sis needed help with writing. Like I needed a lot of help. So when I think of success, I think success and struggle goes hand in hand, but it's about your mindset. Struggle is more so you not believing that anything is possible, you not having joy, and you not allowing yourself to process what is actually going on. So once I became successful, because that's different for everyone, success and struggle is going to be different. I realized that struggle was just was just lessons that I had to learn. It wasn't so much of things being against me. It was more so, what did you learn from this obstacle that you could potentially use in your successful moments? And that is definitely, that would definitely be the point where I started embracing the struggle. I no longer feared failing. I no longer feared being wrong. I didn't even fear if I was going to graduate or not, because I was my biggest competition, and the little milestones that I was overcoming was success enough for me. So it was me overcoming the fear that I had and the lack of belief I had in myself that made me start believing that I am what success is, and whatever my mindset says it is.
So it kind of seems like the overall outcome is kind of the same because of RJ. So if RJ, if you want to explain exactly how you helped with this, that'd be great.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I'm RJ Portella. I'm the learning specialist in the Learning Center. You know, when I sit in my office and a student walks through the door, they are there because they want to be there. And sometimes they might not be, and I might have to go search out and find them if I know that they're struggling simply just by a number that's on a screen. But if someone is walking into my office, there is both a unique set of gifts and a unique set of challenges walking through that door. And as soon as I treat two students the same, I do at least one of them a disservice. Meaning I'm not going to throw some kind of stock answer out there and say, oh, have a nice day. And both when Muhammad and Ahava first came into, Ahava was literally the first student I had at Rutgers. Back when I was in the tutoring center. And I was texting Michael earlier on, I could cry just how proud I am of both of you and how far you've come. But here's how they got that far. They were willing to be honest about where they were. They were willing to be asked tough questions, and they were willing to do the work, even though sometimes it felt like it was, I had to kind of, nudge them and push them along. There was a willingness demonstrated by them of just walking into the office to get the help in the first place. And I feel like some students, like Ahava said, if your upbringing might be as such whether it's culture or just your upbringing in your household or whatever the case may be, where you feel like, no, I have to have this all figured out myself. Oh, no. None of us does this by yourself. And if you had everything figured out already, you'd already have earned the degree. Part of the learning experience is literally just that, the learning experience. And I'm always a big fan of saying mistakes are only mistakes if you don't learn from them. But then would you even know that it was a mistake because you haven't learned from it? You haven't acknowledged it. So being willingness and honesty and being open-minded to the possibility of I don't have to do this by myself. I can link up with resources, and there is a family at Rutgers waiting to help you. I think sometimes students don't necessarily see that. But Muhammad and Ahava definitely possess those characteristics of, they knew something was wrong. They didn't know the answers. They reached out, and through sometimes what seemed to be an arduous process, but definitely worth it, they soon found better paths for themselves. And it's thrilling. Thrilling is the best word that I can use and an honor and a privilege to witness it. That's all.
Thank you.
I feel like RJ enough credit because he's not that type of guy that'll just sugarcoat everything for you. Like he'll tell you, you need to get your shit together and you're gonna do this and that to get back to where you were, rather than just be like, oh, you just need to try a little harder. Like he gets serious compared to anybody else I've met.
Yeah, I definitely understand exactly what you're talking about. But Mohammed, so from Ahava's like, you know, background of growing up like in an atmosphere that's based around independence, would you also say that like you also did the same of like growing up in a like a family environment that was focused on being independent and not asking for help?
Yeah, pretty much. I kind of zoned out when I was trying to explain myself earlier, but I got it together. I have a very similar situation to Hava. Yes, I have to pick myself up. I don't really get help from my family as much. I have to do everything on my own. And also, I have to carry them sometimes in terms of finance and just doing regular everyday stuff.
Mm.
And like, you have to find the right balance. And that's what I couldn't find. And I believe RJ really pushed me to that right balance.
Ahava, what advice would you give to someone who's, you know, also grew up in this atmosphere that was focused around independence?
My advice to someone who is also struggling with independence is allow yourself to give yourself patience, give yourself grace, and don't be hard on yourself because you have enough people outside of you doing that. A lot of times we judge ourselves harsher than what others do, and we judge ourselves off of doing things that we didn't know. Like, how could you be mad at yourself if you didn't know that this is how school was going to be, this is how this first job was going to be? I think it's really important to give yourself that grace period. And when you do figure out that this is something new and you're not going to have it together, you're not going to know all the answers, but being open to learning, like RJ was saying, is going to be the biggest thing. It's the biggest part. What I do is I get excited when I am in a space and I don't know. Because I am usually the go-to person for everything. And like I said before, I do a lot of community work and I also do a lot of self-work. I think that's important too, to have time to yourself to analyze your feelings, to analyze what you want out of life and who you want to be. All of that is created by us. Although we have these traditions and things we're taught when we're growing up, you have the ultimate decision of who you want to be and where you want to go in your life. So please, 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 my biggest advice to you, anyone who is struggling, is be patient and be open. That's it.
Yeah, I definitely want to add to that. I definitely feel like it's also putting yourself in a vulnerable state as well. So being comfortable with being uncomfortable. Natalie, I know you know a little bit more about like mental awareness. So is there anything that you want to say about being comfortable with being vulnerable?
I just listening to that, I was thinking about myself and how I would be one of the first people to give this kind of advice, to let yourself be vulnerable and be wrong. But also at the same time, I know that I struggle with that. I struggle with being in vulnerable situations or being in a place where I don't know everything. And I struggle with being wrong. Like, I hate to be wrong, but it's okay to be wrong, right? So it's like, I'm just thinking through how like I need to practice what I preach a little more often, I think. And I think I had mentioned this, I don't know if it was in a panel or a workshop, but you want to treat yourself the way that you would treat a friend or your family, right? So not being so hard on yourself and just knowing that it's okay to be vulnerable and okay to be wrong. and it's going to happen if you're comfortable with it or not. So, you know, it's best to try to be okay with it.
That is excellent. That's actually a great segue into the next question about bad days, bad weeks, months, you know, periods in your life. If anyone would want to, you know, answer that question, that'd be fantastic. Mohammed, Ahava, Michael, RJ, Natalie, Alyssa, Rocky, anyone, yeah.
So you said, what is
So what advice would you give to someone that is facing a bad day, week, month, year, you know, period, like a wave of bad days or anything like that?
For me, I would say you have to find out what brings you joy. And that's a part of self-care. So when it comes to things that bring you joy, it doesn't have to necessarily be you buying anything or going out unless that's what you like to do. But and this is a part of you doing some self-reflection and understanding who you are. So for me, if I'm having a bad day, I like to meditate. That is a practice I started about 1.5 years ago. I am way more consistent with it now. And I find myself being centered more when I start my day off with a clear mind. Anything that happened yesterday is yesterday. I think yes, Leah. Yep. Okay, whatever you want. We get so stuck and focused on what has already happened and what has yet to happen that we stress ourselves out. If you allow yourself to just we go do something and I get cheese and somebody can do. Leah's addicted to Chick-fil-A, y'all. I'm sorry. She wants finger nuggets. All right, Jay, you already know. Leah is that's Leah, y'all. If we focus more on being present and working on what is the task is at hand, a lot of those stressful days and stressful moments will decrease. So my advice would be find out what works for you, whether that's drawing, reading out loud, and cutting your phone off. Let me tell you, one semester, let me tell you one of the secrets of my semester was I deactivated every social media outlet for the whole semester. And you don't notice how much time you actually end up just scrolling on social media when you're going on there looking for one thing, and how time just passes you by. Next thing you know, you've been sitting here on a chair in the toilet for 3 hours looking at social media when you could have been studying. So I definitely, when you're spending more time with yourself, yeah, Leah, and you find out what your distractions are, what you like, what you dislike, it'll be so much easier to allow those bad moments and those bad days to just be a moment in time that pass. That's it. But that's my advice. I'm gonna mute myself now, you guys.
No, that's great advice. Thank you so much. And Mohammed, what would you give to someone that has been facing a bad grade?
Sorry, could you repeat that? It's like muffled.
What would you give to someone who is facing a bad semester or is struggling, you know, with a bad course or anything like that?
Well, Hava kind of said what I was thinking, but I did want to add to what she had to say.
Yeah.
When you try to find something that gives you joy, I'm just going to say don't resort to temporary escapes like drugs or alcohol just to suppress any kind of sadness or stress. It just puts you on a vicious cycle. It's not healthy. And I see a lot of people do it and they just create a habit. And habits are harder to break than it is to create. I mean, no, harder to, yeah, it's hard to break. And basically, I would say sit with your feelings, no matter how you're feeling, like sad, angry, sit with it. And you'll learn a lot about yourself by sitting with those feelings for no matter how long. You'll learn how to cope better. It's like a stimulus. Like each time you sit through this long period of feelings, you'll be more adapted and you'll know how to deal with it over time.
So are you saying that there isn't really a difference between a personal bad day versus like an academic bad day?
Um, there, I don't think there is. I mean, it's like the emotion that it provokes. That's what I think. If it's like, say you did bad on a test, don't let it like push you down and say, oh, I have to withdraw right away, or I'm screwed. Like, talk to the professor, be friends with your professor. That's what I would say. Use your resources. Really think like, what could I have done to like do better on the next test? How did I use my time wisely? Did I study correctly? Did I use the right resources? Like, there's a lot of factors that go into it, and I feel like after someone does bad on a test, they don't really think about that. They just like under the breath, they're like, screw the professor, screw this. This is not fair. But really, if other people can get a nice grade on it, you should find a way to also.
Yeah, I definitely I agree with you. I definitely don't think there is at least for me, maybe other people are the same, but when I get a grade that I don't like in class, I definitely put it more onto my personal life rather than my academic life. Like I need to definitely need to be more active to separating that. Like sophomore year, I had a 3.9, freshman year. I was very fortunate, and all of a sudden it dropped to a 3.8, and I was very hard on myself for some reason. Like I don't know why I did that. Like it's still great, but
Yeah.
I definitely had it affect me a lot more than it should have. And I didn't like the state of mind that I was in. Does anyone else have any more advice for like bad days or anything like that?
I'll jump in really quickly. I have just two minor thoughts. One, everyone has a bad day. Everyone has a bad day. If someone tells you that every day is sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns, they're lying or they're trying to sell you something. Life is difficult sometimes, right? But one of the things that I do with friends of mine in circles, and Ahava and I have done this, we send each other gratitude lists. In other words, pick 3, 4, 5 things that I'm grateful for. For example, number 1 on my list is always, I am alive and healthy and happy. And sometimes maybe that's just good enough, right? Or little things like a purring cat on my lap, or I know that where my next meal is coming from, or anything. If it's one day like that, maybe a gratitude list, get a chain going, get a group text going. But I think the more it extends to a week, a month, a year, I would say honor your feelings. If it's not working for you, change it. And if you can't do it alone, sometimes maybe you can. But if you can't do it alone, reach out for help. Like I said before, none of us does this alone. And if things are going down a very bad path, maybe what you need is an objective ear, eye, voice to ask you questions, to figure out maybe there is something going on with you that you can't see yourself. I know it's happened with me many times in my life where I'm so into my own lane that I don't even see like the storm around me. That's what I would say is in the short term, maybe a gratitude list. In the long term, the longer it gets, keep seeking help. Keep seeking help. That's all.
And, I'd like to build off of what RJ just said for a second there. And so he talked about like a short-term solution to one bad day, right? And a long-term solution to a period or a stretch of bad days. And I think they both point to the same reality. You can't expect your circumstances to change unless you're willing to change your behaviors, to try something different, right? Whether that's asking for help, whether that's focusing on the things that you're grateful for, whether that's choosing to change your study habits or to realign your schedule so that you have the space you need to succeed. I think the biggest mistake that I made in my undergraduate studies was the last 2 years of my undergraduate experience. Like I was really on this downward trajectory with personal relationships, with academics. And I thought that if I just kept trudging along, that would be enough. Like all I needed to do was make it through the day, and in the end, everything would work out. And that was so far from the truth, because there were like changes that I needed to make in my life. There were changes that I needed to make in the relationships that I was filling my life with. And, you know, it really took an experience where I kind of hit bottom to realize that something needed to change. I would encourage nobody to wait until that moment to start thinking about changes that you can make. They might be scary, they might seem big, but I just want to lean on what was said earlier by RJ again, that there is a team on our campus waiting and ready to surround you with support, with affirmation, with the encouragement, skills, whatever you need to get you where you're trying to go. And so don't be afraid to make a change. Be afraid of not changing anything and letting that bad day turn into a bad week, turn into a bad month, turn into a bad year. It's our failure to change and adapt to circumstances a lot of the time that I think contributes to that.
I'm actually, I just want to like thank everyone for all of your advice that's going on here this evening. It's definitely something that like I'm very fortunate to be a part of. So I just want to chime in. Thank you guys for everything. And with that, this is definitely an opportunity for anyone to ask questions. Not just you know, finishing up on the last one, what advice would you give to a freshman and senior, but also you know, any questions at all. So if anyone wants to you know, chime in for any advice that you would give to a, you know, even like a senior in high school, definitely a great opportunity to do so. Yeah.
I have to leave a little early, so I'm going to try to get my question in for Ahava, if she's still there. I heard you mention you're a social worker, so I'm wondering, and it also kind of sounded like you're more on the macro side of things in social work. So yeah, so I'm wondering, if I'm assuming you majored in social work at Rutgers.
Yes.
So this is kind of a specific question. I'm sorry, everybody else. I am wondering how you, because I'm interested in macro social work, I'm interested in policy and government, etc. And I've noticed just from my time, my past 4 years here, that everything is more geared towards micro, like that therapy and direct practice. So I'm wondering, like, basically how you got into doing what you're doing now.
Okay, so I would say before I went to Rutgers, I had a clear understanding of what I wanted to do, which was help people. And I started participating in community, not even community events. I started looking into jobs that will help me help people. So I became a cop. My first year of community college. And when I realized that what's happening in our community, what's happening in our country now is exactly what they taught us in the academy, I realized that that was not the place for me. I started thinking of different ways I can help. And what I learned is you cannot make any changes or assist a community or a state unless legislation is created. So when I started looking into Rutgers, I started looking into ways that I can help an individual empower themselves to create multiple leaders. That was my goal. I didn't want to be the only one doing it. So when I went to Rutgers, I learned that it wasn't only clinical that was an option. I learned about the macro level. That's when I started participating in community events. I was a campaign manager last year and a campaign advisor this year. Get involved in your community to see what needs are not met in your community. Get to know your political freeholders, local office, county offices, and start volunteering. This way, when you start the social work path, you already know who you can connect with once you graduate or while you're still in school. So you know how they want you to get involved on campus, get involved in your community. So like right now, I only have a bachelor's degree. So I don't actually use my degree because as a bachelor's, I can't counsel, I can't do counseling services or anything. But as a community organizer, I'm able to use my education and my experience to assist with organizing these protests, these movements. And I know Rutgers, once you get to the master's level, you are more on a math schedule. Not schedule, it's called track.
Do you guys hear anything?
Uh,
Okay.
she-
No. Okay. She was breaking up for a little bit towards the end there, and now I don't hear anything.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Now we can. I can, at least. Right?
Okay, because I'm driving now. Once I get past this little shopping center, my service will come back. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. That was really helpful information. Thank you so
Okay.
much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you, everybody. I'm gonna go pick up my car. But thank you so much. This was really nice.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Let's keep our heads on this week.
Mhm.
Bye.
That's really good advice for a senior, which is Natalie. So definitely having a lot more community outreach. But is there any advice that any of you guys would give to a incoming freshman or a current freshman right now?
I would say I would tell them to do their research like really well and talk to people, different majors, ask them how it's like, because most freshmen don't know like what they want to be most of the time. They might have an idea, but once they go into that field, they might not like it. So the best thing would be to do research on the fields that they have interest in, and also talk to the people in the field and ask what kind of work do they do, and what kind of internships they offer, and what are the GPA requirements. Like, can they handle the work stress? Especially if someone's like going to nursing. I know so many people that dropped out because they didn't do their research well enough and they didn't think it'll be this much stress.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely two really good points of academic stress, which it's definitely like one of those things where it's you either you have to like keep going or you find like a different path for yourself, or as RJ is probably thinking in his head of seeking out resources to use in order to continue to succeed in that major. And I really like your advice on, seeking out internships. I definitely, it's such an amazing way to really get hands-on experience and figure out exactly. It's very difficult to like, I feel like it's very difficult to like conduct research, as a senior in high school or, a freshman. You don't really like, I really feel like, seniors, at least from my perspective, don't have like the amount of like resources that current freshmen are knowledgeable of. So it's definitely one of those things of like finding, a campus community that is, suitable to you, that if you would like is flexible or is focused on one thing and only one thing. So I definitely, definitely conducting research to find which path is right for you. But it's also kind of one of those things of having a lot more confidence in yourself. I know my sister, she was studying oceanography, and her senior year realized that she wanted to switch to engineering, which is a huge flip. and actually had to stay an extra year because of that, but is so happy in her career now because of that. So even if it's at the last minute, it's still possible to, definitely find your path for sure. Any other advice that anyone would give to a freshman?
This is a Hava. The advice I would give to a freshman is, if college is not for you, that's okay too.
Mm.
I think society and our families have put so much emphasis on telling us that we can't make it, or telling us you're not going to be able to get a good job if you don't go to college, that we force ourselves to do it knowing that that's not where our heart is. I really think that before applying to colleges, find out what you like, really dig deep in yourself and find out what you like to do. Because trade school is just as good. And college isn't for everyone. And I really, when I tell you, it took everything in me to get through it. It took everything in me. Like, my GPA during my sophomore year dropped down to like a 0.923. I didn't even know it could go that low. So I was really at a point like, why am I even in college? Like, who said I had to come here? Like, who said this was my route? This was what my life was supposed to be like. So I went through it because I fell in love with the social work program, and I fell in love with the family on the campus. Other than that, I would probably, if I knew that there was other alternatives, I probably would have went another route. Not saying that you have to go another route, but make sure the decisions that you're making is not based off of someone else's opinion of what your life should be. That would be my number one advice. And that's it.
That is very well said. Thank you so much. Thank you. So that is all the questions that I have, and we are about to begin wrapping up. So if anyone wants to, add more advice to the discussion, or ask any questions, that'd be great.
Sabrina, what advice would you give to someone that's struggling?
So I feel like it really depends on what sort of struggle it is. Because like sophomore year, I was just like really down on myself, and I would nitpick on everything, and it took me a while to actually like seek help, because I definitely do come from that type of family that is driven on being independent. So it definitely took a while for me to actually seek help, and eventually it was diagnosed as like manic depression, and to like be part of therapists and doctors that are actually helping me definitely is making like just makes me overall so much better as a person. So I guess like the advice for someone who's struggling is like really figuring out what form of struggle it is. If it's just based around academics, seeking like a learning assistance like RJ, or if it's more personal. Definitely figuring out exactly what is the source of the problem.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that anyone wants to chime in?
One thing that I'll add, particularly in Zoom world during the pandemic, is the value of finding some way to stay connected to a community. I think if I had, to go back to your question about what advice would you give for a first year student, I think my biggest concern right now for students who are starting their college journey this semester is the inherent challenges in connecting with other groups of students. And so I know that hanging out on Zoom and living life through a computer isn't the same as flesh and blood, face-to-face relationships, but give it a try. Like, go check out different events that student organizations are hosting. Use the discussion boards on your Canvas or Sakai pages to initiate conversations with other students to try and form study groups. Because that sense of community, that sense of belonging within a college culture, I think is so critical to success. And often when we struggle, it's our supportive relationships all around us that help get us back on our feet, dust us off, remind us that we are worthy and we are capable, and walk alongside us as we move from that path, down that path from struggle to success. And so I think this is really a challenging time for humans to stay connected to other humans. But I would be, figure out a way to make it work, however it's going to work for you. This journey through higher education is not one that a person is meant to take alone. It's inherently a collective experience, and it's inherently a social experience. And so while current circumstances may have us in our own spaces away from each other, we need to avail ourselves of every opportunity to connect with one another, learn from one another, and support one another.
Definitely a great way to end the conversation this evening. I just want to thank everyone again for the conversation, and if we can just like do this all over again at 11:20 on the dot tomorrow, that'd be fantastic. So if you guys are able to come tomorrow, that'd be great. If you're not, totally fine. I am still very appreciative of everyone being able to be here. Yeah, thank you guys again. This has been absolutely amazing, and I hope everyone is, finding a way to relax this evening on election day as well.